Hello and welcome to Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. These can be issues to do with entrepreneurship, manufacturing, commerce and industry in general, banking and finance, and many other topics. We bring them here to Economic Forum in order to discuss them and see how they impact our economy. My name is John Masugu. Procurement plays a very important part in government business. And today we want to look at transparency, accountability, and empowerment with regards to the issue of procurement or the process of procurement in government. Zimbabwe is indeed open for business. Nyika inovakwa nevenevayo, ilizwe lakhiwa ngabanikazi balo or ngabanini balo, and everyone should participate in business. And the same goes with procurement, where there is inclusivity to include everybody so that no one is left behind. And today we are talking about all that, seeing how everyone is included and how processes are transparent to everyone. And we have invited the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, that is PRAZ, and they are represented here on this program by Mqele Chuma. Welcome, Mqele.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masugu.
Yes, we would like to understand your mandate. What does PRAZ do, and how are you empowered by legislation, and do you have teeth?
Thank you so much for that. Yes, PRAZ is a statute of parliament, and it comes in from what we have actually seen to be called the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act. So it comes in from that level, and this act actually came into effect in 2018, coming from the reforms that were done previously in 2017. So from that time, we've actually been in a position to say, what are we there for with our mandate, with our functions, and so on and so forth. Our functions are mainly looking at the transparency levels within the public procurement space, the fairness that is treated within the public procurement space, and also looking at cost effectiveness of some of the goods and services that are being offered within that procurement space. That is just part one of those. The other issue is to also to look at compliance that comes along with what public procurement has actually to be, the way it's supposed to be done. Are the entities that are in public procurement space complying with everything that is needed? Also, one of the other things is to make sure that the professionals within the public procurement space are actually capacitated enough to say they are able to execute their mandate within the good frame and the statutes of what has actually been put on the ground by the Act. So we are making sure that at every particular level, we are holistic in our approach, and we are even mandated at a given point to adopt the issues of electronic government or procurement systems. So we are looking at issues where we're talking about capacitation, and then we're looking at issues of electronic procurement. Electronic procurement is something that is now common, and everyone is actually working on that. Previously, we've been in a position where we're working with these big documents and so on and so forth, but our mandate is also to make sure that whatever we're doing, we then roll out on electronically, and then we're able to facilitate our mandate through the electronic platforms. We've also been in a position where we are saying, as an entity or as part of our functions, we actually need to be looking at how transparency is actually coming on board. There are issues of equitability that we are talking about, where we are talking about equitable frameworks. And we are looking at what exactly it means. Everyone has to have an opportunity within that particular space. It is one of those mandates where we're saying, we are looking at ourselves to say, what are we doing as a regulator? We are looking at that. You ask a question about teeth. Yes, we do have teeth. Our teeth are based on the evidence as to how people are complying with the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act. And we have our partners that we work with, which we present evidence of how people failed or managed to comply within the particular act, and failure to which they will be then prosecuted within the other frames. Those are our teeth, and that's how we utilize them.
Yes, and your stakeholders, when you are looking at you as PRAZ, who are your stakeholders?
Literally everyone in the country is our stakeholder. But we've got then the people who are actually exposed to the public procurement system itself, where you're looking at that government is the biggest spender in the country, and obviously you're looking at them as one of our biggest stakeholders. Then you've got the ministries within the government of Zimbabwe. Those are also our stakeholders. You've got the para-state house. You can all talk about your ministries, your departments, your agencies. Those are the stakeholders that we are talking about as part and parcel of people who fit in. But also, generally, the people of Zimbabwe are our stakeholders because they also need those opportunities from government to participate in. So we also appreciate them as our stakeholders because look at the quantities or the numbers that the people are in the country. There are so many, and also we recognize them as our stakeholders.
And when the tendering or procurement process goes wrong, normally the finger is pointed at you.
Yes.
Without fully understanding your role as the regulator. Just to end this segment, why is that so?
The issue where people are coming with this thing from a historical perspective, where the commencement of PRAZ in 2018 came along with where we're saying we decentralized procurement from us, the then entity which was SPB was usually buying for everyone. But when PRAZ came in, PRAZ decentralized the service to say procurement is done at procuring entity level. All we do now is we regulate how that procurement process has happened. Did it happen in an accountable manner, in a transparent manner, in a fair manner, cost effective? Those are now our roles as an entity, and we're making sure that whatever perception is now there is now coming through to say we are regulating those entities. And the regulatory aspect comes in with what I've initially stated as our mandate.
When we come back in the second segment, we are going to be talking about the procurement process itself and compliance and some of the issues that have arisen through this process. Our guest today is Mqele Chuma. Join us in the second segment. We're now going to talk about the procurement process, the issue of tenders and other things with our guest here in this second segment, and that's Mqele Chuma. When you talk about tenders, tenderpreneurship, that's where it becomes more interesting because there are others who are there only for tenders, and at times the delivery is questionable. Tell us about the process and how you come into it.
The procurement process itself starts with the registration, where you expect one to actually register from afresh, where we want to look at company documents. We want to see the shareholding that is entailed within that particular company, and we want to see the directors of that particular company and also see who really is really part and parcel of that entity, where it's located, is it a shelf company, what's the structure of the company as it were, is it a PPC, is it a, private limited. You are looking at all that. So with this process, when someone is done registration, the registration is actually done online. And that online platform, we're now doing it on the Electronic Government Procurement System, which is EGP. EGP is the system that was launched on 1 January 2024. And this system is the electronic procurement system that we talked about earlier as one of those functions that we have to facilitate as a regulator. Anyone in the country is able to access EGP and go to the dashboard section upon landing on the page. And when you are landing on that particular page, you have the opportunity to see any tender that has been posted by any entity. You are also in a position to see the annual procurement plans of those entities that you may so wish to supply or participate on their tenders. So this is just but a process where we're saying anyone has opportunity to access. But then those who have registered and are willing to participate within those tenders, they are then in the specific categories that they've managed to register for. They even get notifications about such kind of posts that come through the EGP platform to say there's such a tender that has come through. If they are willing to participate, they can do so willingly. This is just but one of those processes. We then are saying within the procurement space, as you are rightfully saying, the process itself, there are methods of procurement that we actually are there. The most encouraged process is the competitive process, where you are saying you put it to public scrutiny. Anyone who's so willing to participate can have an equal opportunity to win and or lose that particular tender. We also have a process which is called direct procurement, And the famous one, obviously, the RFQs, where is request for quotations, where everyone will go out there and say, can I have 3 quotations? And then we go and look at what is taking place out there, who is the cheaper one, you evaluate from there. But the most ideal one, which is needed at regulatory level, is the competitive method of procurement. This one is exposing everyone to participate on the table equally. And we are saying these opportunities people should take advantage of. This is the procurement process that happens in the country. And when that is now happening, then there are stages of saying, okay, upon winning or upon closure of a certain tender, the tender itself will then be evaluated. Lately, there's something called an evaluation committee, where those with knowledge around the subject matter of what has actually been posted on will then be called through by the accounting officer, who will then nominate them to be part and parcel of that evaluation committee. We all bring our expertise, sit around the table, agree on the products as per the service or the goods that have been delivered. Does it meet the criteria of what we said in the standard bidding documents? And then this is the whole process that is completed there. And then thereafter, the accounting officer will sign off everything as to how the process then was done. This is the procurement process in Zimbabwe.
Well, it sounds so smooth as you explain it,
Yes.
but the perceptions are that there's greasing that takes place, there is overpricing that takes place with regards to those quotations that you are talking about. Dispel or or say something about those perceptions.
True. What is happening is that this is a system where everyone works in speculation. There are systems where someone wants, in Zimbabwe, there's this culture of saying, I want the money now, cash on delivery or something like that. But with the payment periods that are also given, then there's speculative agendas that come on board. And then that speculative agenda then comes out on everywhere where people will then see. But the good part about what we've then done with the introduction of the electronic government procurement system, this is now transparent. People are now seeing that whoever is participating in these tenders is not participating in a fair way in terms of the costs. They just want to get their costs high up there, but is it the fair approach of how we have to cost our products? Now everyone can see that our businesses are not doing what is expected of them in the right way. And that is then giving that challenge to say, it's not like the public procurement system itself is giving higher prices or anything, but it is our people out there, it is the procuring entities, it is the suppliers who are actually giving out those prices in the wrong way. And that is now supposed to be corrected because it's something that is coming through perception. And that perception, as much as it is alive and kicking in some areas, but it's something that can then be nipped in the bud because at a given point, transparency is now at stake. We are saying everyone is out there to see. What then do we say about our businesses? Should they also change their perception? Should they also change their approach to how they are pricing? Yes, of course they should, because ultimately it looks like public procurement tends to be expensive, but it is not our making, but it is the greed that is out there, which you are talking about, where there's greasing and so on and so forth. It is not part and parcel of the regulator's mandate, but it is something that is out there.
Yes. And what are you doing to educate the public? Because obviously, while you've put all these new gadgets and new systems, it's also important for the public to know and how to use them. They may open those systems and not even understand what's going on.
True. We have had trainings that we've done around the country to also empower people around the subject matter to say, what exactly can you actually need to actually participate with this? So it's obviously a web-based application that we are using, where you need your internet, you need a cell phone that can also go online, you also may need a laptop that you can use in the comfort of your office or home. And we've been training people as to how to go about each and every step of this particular process. But also what we've done, especially with the issue of pricing, we've had MOUs with other entities where we're trying to nip at least to some extent to say, let there be an average price of a certain product, which if all of us know that a certain product costs how much, you surely cannot take it for a figure that will come way higher than that, unless there's just a slight percentage of, plus or minus that price, which is a national price index. And we are saying through that particular platform, we've had that MOU, and I think it's going to work in our advantage as Zimbabweans.
When we come back, Mkhele, we also want to look at how all this is empowering Zimbabweans. That's Mkhele Chuma, who is the Corporate Communications Manager at the Procurement Authority or the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, which is known as PRAZ. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. Promoting affirmative procurement as well as domestic preferences is one of the things that PRAZ does when it is doing its work of regulating procurement. And welcome back to the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we have Mkhele Chuma, who is the Corporate Communications Manager at PRAZ, explaining us about all the processes and dispelling some of the perceptions as he has rightly done so. Let's talk about the affirmativeness in this whole process of procurement so that everyone is included, as we said, that everyone has to be involved.
Sure. The issue of affirmative procurement is something that has come in handy for us as part of the gaps that we are trying to close in the procurement space. We have seen of late that there's a big perception that when you're talking procurement, you're talking tenders, you're talking this, it's only maybe for the chosen few or these tenderpreneurs who specialize in doing tenders. But it is not the case in most of the instances, because what has happened is that the opportunities then seem not to be too fair to anyone who would say, what about me on the street? What about me as a youth person? What about me as a disabled person? What about me as a woman out there? What about me as a war veteran? So we have identified some groups which I've just listed, and those groups are actually part and parcel of the groups that are part and parcel of affirmative procurement, and some of them are the SMEs. So what we have done is these are previously marginalized groups. We have not had equal opportunity in participating in opportunities that are there in business or in public procurement space. So us recognizing them is to say we need a portion where they also come in and be included in this whole big cake. What we've then done is we've been in a process since last year of crafting the affirmative procurement guidelines, where we are in a position to say these guidelines will then help all the procuring entities out there to say if they need to empower these people, how then do they give them a certain portion of a quota within the tenders that would have come through, or that the ones that they have within their spaces, and then be in a position to say this one is reserved for these people, marginalized, formerly marginalized groups. That's the women, your youth, your SMEs, your war veterans, amongst other people. This is how we've actually managed to do this. So the stages of affirmative procurement guidelines are almost 70% in terms of gathering information, because we've got a national tour around trying to gather what people may need to be included in these guidelines. And we're in a position now to say we're completing this process, and when we complete, we then share with all those procuring entities.
How deeper into the country do you go? Is procurement for those who live in urban areas only?
No, we go deeper to the rural areas. We take advantage of some of our partnerships that we do have on a quarterly basis to reach out to the extremely marginalized groups or those hardly accessible areas, deep areas in every province. So what happens is every quarter we go out to a province and there's a deep rural area that is identified. We talk to those people out there, tell them of these opportunities, and most of the people that we find there are the groups that I've just been talking about in affirmative procurement. And when we actually share our message with them, we then present the opportunities to them as to such a time when this thing is now ripe, we can then be in a position to share again the successes of how they can then come into the public procurement space.
Yes. Let's look at preferences. People would complain that why get this from China or from South Africa when we actually have it here. How do you then regulate that to make sure that Zimbabwean products also move?
Mm-hmm. Section 29 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act talks about domestic preferencing. This is looking at your local industries, your local manufacturers, to say how do you protect them from such which you're talking about, to say there's a foreign product that may make its way here, and this person obviously would be disadvantaged, especially in terms of costing, because probably you're looking at how our manufacturing is versus manufacturing from other countries. Others do it in a very cheaper way, and then they bring the product, but disadvantaging our local people. So what has happened with domestic preferencing is that there's even an element of a percentage which has been put inside that particular pricing system to say we're in a position to pay an extra figure if we are competing with a foreign product, to pay the local product to be in a position to empower them and make sure that they are preferred with their product that they have, unlike us promoting products from other nations.
So doesn't that have any loopholes?
The loopholes might be there between now and such a time, or at least we are tightening the screws. But all we are saying between now and such a time is that that opportunity is now there to protect the manufacturer, the local supplier, because they also need that opportunity. It is a role that we have taken upon ourselves to play as a nation, to say we are protecting this sector, and we are making sure that at a given point when that thing is done, we are then in a position to talk the better language with them. So we have been in a position to say these suppliers can then be protected by us through that incentivized extra payment of a percentage, unlike paying the foreign product, which comes in slightly lower than what they would have charged.
And what due diligence do you actually apply when you're looking at people in procurement to wind up this program?
There are so many issues that we are looking at there. We are looking, especially briefcase companies, we try by all means to look at that, because it's one of those things that I know most people will say, okay, they presented a very good CV to us, but there's nothing that has been happening. We can't locate them, this and that. But through the addresses, through the electronic government procurement system, when someone is entering all those, we need physical places where these people will actually be found. And we are in a position to say, as part and parcel of our due diligence process, we identify through the banks how they are banking, their financials and so on, and they utilizing that platform, and how they are also in terms of references that come through with the former places that they have supplied before. Are they on record to say they've been supplying good items out there? So we take advantage of all that as part of the due diligence process.
Well, there you are, viewers. Everything to do with procurement and tendering, I'm sure, has been answered here by Mkhele Chuma, who was our guest here on Economic Forum. He is the Corporate Communications Manager at the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, and that's PRAZ. If you have any questions about these issues of procurement and tendering and other issues that we discuss here, you can get in touch with us on the numbers that are showing on your screen. If you would like to engage with us on these issues again, you can do so on the social media platforms that are also showing on your screen. If you happen to have missed some of the episodes of Economic Forum, you can watch them on our YouTube channel, which is Economic Forum Zimbabwe. So on behalf of Mkhele Chuma from PRAZ and the Economic Forum production team, this is John Masugu wishing you happy viewing.